Module 5, War of 1812, Lesson 1, America in 1812. From 1775 to 1783, America fought Great Britain for independence. This conflict was called the Revolutionary War. Against all odds, America won. What had been the 13 original colonies officially became the United States of America. After gaining independence, the American people did not want kings or queens governing them anymore. Americans wanted to create a new kind of government. They wanted to be able to elect individuals to represent the people and act with their best interests in mind. They wanted a government that was by the people and for the people. To help create a new form of government, several elected leaders met in Philadelphia in May and June of 1787. Some leaders who could not attend, such as Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, wrote down their ideas. Together, this group of leaders became the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers' ideas all came together in a document called the United States Constitution. The Constitution became the framework for an American government. A man named James Madison had a clear vision of how the United States should govern itself. James Madison is known as the father of the Constitution because he put all of the ideas together by writing the Constitution with the help of George Washington. He also became the 4th President of the United States. For many years after the Revolutionary War, the United States grew larger and wealthier. New states such as Vermont, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Louisiana were added. New territories were also settled. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson purchased the Louisiana Territory from France. This purchase more than doubled the size of the United States. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, France and Britain went to war against each other. The series of wars became known as the Napoleonic Wars, named after the French leader at the time, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte wanted to make France the most powerful nation in the world. Britain was determined to stop him. The United States considered both France and Great Britain to be its friends. It did not want to get involved in these costly and destructive wars. Even though the Napoleonic Wars were being fought all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, they greatly affected the United States. Much of the United States' growth during this time depended upon trade with France and Great Britain. Britain and France had many merchants, or trading ships. These ships sailed across the Atlantic to trade goods with the United States, Canada, and with many of the French and British-owned islands in the Caribbean. For example, the United States sent flour and tobacco to France and Great Britain. Great Britain and France received sugar and coffee or cocoa from these countries. Both countries wanted to stop the other from trading with the United States. They each also tried to prevent the other from getting money and supplies. They also did not want the United States to choose sides. To keep the French from trading with the United States, the English blockaded or blocked several U.S. ports. They also blockaded several important ports in Europe. This seriously hurt the U.S. trade. France and Britain both had large naval fleets positioned in the Atlantic Ocean to attack each other's ships. To make matters worse, the British and the French began to seize or capture American ships loaded with valuable cargo. It became almost impossible to safely transport goods from the United States to foreign ports. It was also more and more difficult for Americans to receive much-needed goods. Merchant ships weren't the only ships in the sea. The United States and Great Britain also had naval ships. Life in the British Navy was not easy. Conditions on the naval ships were terrible and punishments were harsh. Because of this, the British Navy had a hard time finding men who wanted to be sailors. To get more sailors, the British began to capture men from other countries' ships and force them to join the British Navy. Sometimes these sailors were British deserters. However, more times than not, The sailors that were seized weren't even British. But that did not stop the British from doing it. They even seized many U.S. sailors. The practice of forcing men into the British Navy was called impressment. The impressment of U.S. citizens upset the American people and the U.S. government. As time went on, the United States found that it was losing more and more valuable cargo, sailors, and money, and even ships. They demanded that the British stop impressing American sailors, but the British refused.